Who's a fat person in your view? Probably someone who has a couple of dozen kilos of extra weight, who likes to eat and has some health problems. Well, compared to the people from today's episode, even fat people will seem thin to you. From the guy who consumes tens of thousands of calories a day, and the man who's lost half a ton of weight, to the woman who consciously wants to be the fattest person on the planet. This is Infinity, and in this episode, I'll show you the world's fattest people. Have you ever counted how many calories per day you consume? On average, you probably have between 2,000 and 3,000. Some, of course, have more, but I'm sure none of you are anywhere near consuming as much as Kenneth Brumley consumed at his prime. The man's long been among the heaviest people on the planet, and right now he's the one being called the fattest man in the world. Several years ago, at his prime, this U.S. resident consumed 30,000 calories daily. By comparison, that's about 60 Big Macs or 75 liters of Coke. At maximum, Kenneth weighed 1,032 pounds. What's more, he wasn't always fat. In his youth, he was actively engaged in sports, but everything went downhill once he gave it up. Kenneth began to pig out on junk food, and at some point lost control. He ate fast food and sweets literally nonstop. Eventually, he gained so much weight that he was unable to stand up and found himself essentially paralyzed and locked in his own home for 4 years. This lifestyle could have killed Kenneth at any moment, so they decided to save him. To get him out of the house and into the hospital, a team of firefighters had to tear down a wall. There was no way the man would have fit through a normal door. The doctors treated him and put him on a very restrictive diet of 1,200 calories per day. In a little more than a month, Brumley lost 168 pounds. Kenneth also underwent surgery and had fatty growths removed from his legs. Although he's partially lost weight and changed, he's still very heavy and his life's in danger. 1,032 pounds is certainly a lot, but it's far from the limit. This guy's story proves it perfectly. A resident of Saudi Arabia, Khalid bin Mohsen Shari, was at one time the heaviest man, not only in his country, but in the whole world. Just a few years ago, he weighed 1,345 pounds. Just imagine how abnormally much that is. Because of serious health problems, he began to rapidly gain weight as a child and eventually became almost completely helpless. Hundreds of pounds of extra weight took a terrible toll on the guy's body. He had trouble breathing even, so Khalid used an oxygen mask. Like Kenneth Brumley, they decided to save him, and an entire operation was performed to do it. Workers took apart part of the wall, moved the guy to a special reinforced bed, and pulled him out of the house with a crane. At the hospital, they examined him and found that Khalid had a record-high BMI of 204. By comparison, in normal people, the index is about 20 to 25. Khalid had a surgery. The doctors literally cut out all the excess from his stomach. He lost 705 pounds. But the amazing thing is that just 4 years after the operation, he weighed 150 pounds, exactly as much as a normal person. In this young man, it's no longer possible to recognize the big man who couldn't get out of bed. Juan Pedro Franco. The next person from the episode was not long ago a full-fledged record breaker. A few years ago, the Guinness Book of World Records recognized this Mexican man as the heaviest person in the world. In 2016, he weighed almost 1,322 pounds. It all started in childhood. Already at the age of 6, Franco weighed 141 pounds. And at the age of 17, he weighed 505 pounds. Then there was a traffic accident, as a result of which he was seriously injured and remained bedridden for a year. As a result, the Mexican continued to gain weight rapidly. Eventually, he got over half a ton mark. Eventually, Juan got tired of not being able to get out of bed and not leaving his room for 6 years, so he decided to have a surgery. Or, more precisely, several surgeries at once. Franco went under the knife 3 times. Surgeons reduced his stomach, thanks to which the Mexican lost almost 772 pounds. Franco now weighs about 573 pounds. Although he has a lot of skin hanging off and is still very heavy, it doesn't compare to what he was a few years ago. The Mexican man can move around on his own, leaning on a cane, grooming himself, getting out of bed, and so on. According to him, doing these things on your own is a great feeling. Samantha Mason. Samantha Mason lived in a small apartment in America where she had a hard time doing anything around the house. This wasn't surprising, considering Samantha weighed more than 970 pounds. Because she was overweight, Samantha suffered from constant joint pain and was relatively helpless. For example, she couldn't get up off the floor if she accidentally fell. She ate because of stress, getting even bigger, and eventually got caught in a vicious cycle. That all changed when Samantha found herself on a TV reality show, My 600-Pound Life, featuring similarly overweight people. The show literally saved Samantha. She got the help she needed, and they put her on a strict diet. Within a few months, Mason had lost 320 pounds, and in total, she lost more than 441 pounds. Samantha makes videos for TikTok, and in these videos, you can barely recognize the girl Samantha was just 2 or 3 years ago. Nasser. The next person from the episode has a resounding title, the fattest man in Australia. At least Nasser had that title for several years before he asked for help. He didn't consume as much as Kenneth Brumley did. His limit was 12,000 calories a day. But even that's extremely much, considering that Andre wasn't moving and ate mostly junk food. This led to the fact that he weighed 1,032 pounds. What's important to note, Andre's mother played a big role in this. She'd been feeding her son since childhood, and even when he started having health problems and when he could barely get out of bed anymore, his mother continued to feed him. The result was like the one of other people from this episode had: imprisonment in the house, helpless, and so on. When the situation became threatening in 2015, doctors decided to take the guy to the hospital. To do this, they had to call rescue workers to dismantle part of the wall of the house, since the guy wouldn't fit through the door. Doctors took Andre to the hospital, where they isolated him from all his relatives and treated him. The Australian lost more than 375 pounds and even began training. Andre prefers boxing, although so far he can only throw light and weak punches. Even this is a huge achievement because relatively recently, he could barely lift his own arm. Myra Rosales. The story of Myra Rosales is a very painful and even tragic one. For a long time, she was morbidly obese. She couldn't walk, she could only lift her body a little with great difficulty, and couldn't take care of herself in any way. All of this was not surprising, considering that Myra weighed 1,036 pounds. Not so long ago, she was considered the heaviest woman on the planet. As if that wasn't enough, Myra started having problems with the police investigation. Once her little nephew was admitted to the hospital with a head injury and soon died, Myra thought that she had accidentally crushed him and even called the police herself, but the investigation came to the conclusion that the woman would not be physically able to do it because of her body features. In any case, it was this episode that was the turning point in Myra's life, and she made the decision to change. The first thing she did was undergo surgery. After this, the doctors began to work on her legs. She had terrible bed sores, and her limbs were deformed from the extremely heavy weight. Gradually, Myra changed and worked hard to regain a normal body. The incredible work was worth it. Myra changed beyond recognition. She lost 882 pounds. Now she weighs about 220 pounds and looks great. Without knowing her story, no one would have thought that just a few years ago she was the heaviest woman in the world. All the people from today's episode dream or have dreamed of only one thing: to lose a lot of extra weight as soon as possible in order to live a normal life. However, some people, on the contrary, are eager to gain a lot of weight and become one of the heaviest people on the planet. For example, Donna Simpson. Donna's been eating a lot since she was a child, but she started gaining weight at a young age when she married a chef. Instead of sleeping at night, Donna and her husband simply ate the food he brought home. So within a few years, Donna had already weighed 351 pounds. Several years later, the woman's weight exceeded 441 pounds, and Donna set a goal to become the fattest woman on the planet. She deliberately stopped moving around on her own, rode an electric scooter everywhere, and consumed 12,000 calories daily. You might ask, where did she get so much money for food? Donna monetized her addiction to food and started a website with donations. Anyone could donate just to watch Donna eating or measuring her waistline. Donna got bigger and bigger, and even past the 660-pound mark. But Donna still has a long way to go to the 1,036 pounds mark. Maybe it's all in vain. Or will Donna still be able to gain weight? What do you think? And yet, most people gain extreme weight unconsciously. Paul Mason from England is another victim of excessive appetite. His breakfast once consisted of bread, bacon, sausages, chicken eggs, and for snacks, Paul ate dozens of packets of chips and candy bars. The British man literally spread out on his chair, couldn't stand up and even rise, because he weighed almost 992 pounds. The staff worked for Paul 24/7, not leaving him alone for a minute, because the Briton himself was helpless. Luckily, Paul realized in time that his lifestyle would just destroy him and asked for help. Surgeons reduced his stomach and put him on a diet. Paul should be praised for passing the test with dignity and losing 661 pounds. Everything was for the sake of his beloved. However, after a few years, they broke up. Paul slipped up and started eating everything again. He's already gained over 220 pounds and he's unlikely to stop. Today, you've seen many incredibly heavy people whose weight is hard to believe. But in fact, none of them can boast the title of the heaviest person in history. Yep, that wasn't the limit. So let's take a last look at two unbeaten record holders. First up is John Minnick. He's the heaviest man that's ever been verified. John lived in the last century, and at his prime, he weighed 1,400 pounds. He had suffered from obesity since childhood and was very large. As for women, the leader of all time is considered to be Carol Yeager. According to confirmed data, she weighed 1,199 pounds. And according to unofficial data, she weighed 1,603 pounds. In any case, the woman was incredibly large. She gained so much weight due to psychological traumas. That's all, guys. How much do you weigh? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you later.